Video 9 with Fitness with Gerry. We're going back to stretching and we're going to review the forward bend. Really useful stretch for lengthening the back of your body. And there are many things you're familiar with, and I think today there will be some new things for you to experiment with. So first of all, the forward bend. You have your legs in front of you. You can have both legs outstretched, or you can do one leg at a time. Now I want to review really quickly. If I bring my foot and I put it close to my knee, my hips are forward. Many times my knee will not be on the ground, so I'll use a yoga block to support that knee. Really important so that these muscles can relax. If they're supporting the leg, then they're working and they cannot relax. If you don't have a yoga block, you can use a cushion or a folded up towel or even a book. Now, if I bring my foot all the way to the groin, it's a different stretch. First of all, my hips are now slightly rotated, and the stretch I'm going to get when I bend forward is in a different location. So both are really good. It's up to you to decide which is best for you at the moment that you're doing the stretching. Also, to let you know, I think it's a really good idea to support the back of the knee. So when I am doing either both legs out front or one leg straight, one leg bent, I will have the block here and I'll have something underneath. This is just a bed sheet with a big rip in it that I folded and rolled up and I strapped. I'll put that under my knee so the knee ligaments at the back of the knee are supported. Here you could also use a pillow or a towel. Here what I have, this is a pillow that was ripped open by either a cat or a dog. Rather than sewing it to fix it, I wrapped it up with a plastic bag and then used plastic string. And I can also use something like this or here. Now, just to quickly review here, when my foot is at the knee, my knee is suspended. But if my foot is all the way in, then my knee gets to relax on the ground and I don't need the support. Everybody is different. It's up to you to locate when you need that extra support. So many times, as I said, I will have something under my knees to support the back of the knee, and depending on the specific moment, I might want the knees to have more support, to be higher, or I can put them lower and I'll get a different kind of stretch. For example, this morning I used this one because about 3 days ago I got really tight on the right side at the hip, and when I woke up this morning it was really tight. So I wanted it to be a little bit easier. So that's why I used the higher support, which just translates into an easier stretch, less pulling of the muscles. Now, other than that, what's important to know is the difference between having a straight back and having a curved back. Here is a rope I made about 10 years ago. It's 5 pieces of rope that I braided together. Here's another one. It's a bit longer, a bit more recent. Start with about 2 meters, make a knot, tighten it with pliers or just with your hands, and then braid it. And then when you get to the end, make another knot. Really useful tool for stretching. So if I want the back straight, here I'm wrapping my hands around the rope. I will pull with my arms, keeping the back straight and using the biceps to bring myself forward to get a nice stretch in the back of the legs and the lower back. But most of the time I will allow my spine to curve, and I will almost always support myself with something. Usually a yoga block, or if I don't have a yoga block, for example, if I'm in a park or at a beach and I haven't brought all my stretching toys, I can use my hands to support my head as I come down into the stretch. The important part about supporting the upper body is to allow all the muscles to stretch. If I am bending forward without supporting the upper body, the muscles that I am trying to stretch are working. They have to hold up the weight of my upper body. So they don't fully get to relax, they don't fully get to stretch. So somehow, if it's early in the morning and I want to be really easy, I'll use something like this, and I'll stay here for 1 or 2 minutes, and then things will loosen up and I can start to go lower. If you're able to touch your toes, you can then also grab the feet. One of my favorite positions, I'll interlace my fingers and just hold this position for 1 or 2 minutes at least, many times longer. Sometimes my hands are here by the top pad of the foot. Sometimes I'll put them down. The camera stopped working. Let's go back to where we were. I forget which one was under my knees. But here I was forward, and I had my hands underneath at my heels, fingers interlaced. And if you're able to reach your feet, you can also give your feet a little bit of a massage, paying attention to the muscles on the underside of the foot and also the bones on the top of the foot and even the toes. Nice to do, relaxing and massaging the feet. When I lift up, I always like to keep the body supported till I get mostly upright, then I can remove the yoga block. Another good position for the legs is to open the feet up so that now the stretch will be focused on the outside of the legs instead of the underside, the back part of the legs. And you would repeat similar, coming down, supporting the weight of the upper body somehow with a block or a stool, and then gently pushing down, opening up the feet a little bit wider, always being gentle. And now the stretch, you'll feel a bit more focused on the outside of the legs. Okay, so that I think is the basics of the forward bend. Another important aspect of the forward bend is to give a bit of a balance. With any kind of stretching, you are lengthening the muscles beyond their normal resting place, so it creates a bit of instability. So what I will always do once I am done that moment of forward bend is I will exercise those muscles that have just been stretched. And the way I do it in combination with the forward bend is I will lift my hips and my knees, always pointing my knees up, never locking the knees down. You want to protect those ligaments on the back of the knee. And I will be exercising, I'll be using those muscles that I just stretched so that they can go back into a more stable position. Let me show you sideways. So I have my hands behind my back, and I will alternate. Sometimes the fingers point back, sometimes the fingers point towards my feet. And I will lift my hips and my knees. And many times I'll also let my head fall backwards, opening up the throat, letting my head rest on my shoulders. Keeping the arms active. Don't lock at the elbow joint. Keep the triceps, the back of the arms, keep those engaged so you're protecting the elbow joint. And I think probably the last part of the forward bend will be something we introduced in the first video, which is commonly called binding the legs. And I think it's important because when my legs are here, the outside muscles are still working a little bit to hold my legs in place. So I'll take my rope. I will bind my legs. At the top of the legs, I'll have one, and I'll tell you, here I have a homemade yoga mat bag, and I realized about a year ago that it's perfect for binding the bottom part of my legs. But if you don't have that bag, here is a loop belt I bought secondhand. I'll put this above the knees, and this is good enough to support the legs, but I would also put another one by the ankles. Seems a bit over the top, but it's useful. I will almost always have my legs bound when I am doing the forward bend. If I don't have all this stuff with me and I want to do the forward bend, I would usually use my arms to hold my legs together. So then I would come into the forward bend. And besides having the arms here, I'll also sometimes put the hands by my knees and push gently inwards with my arms, and it also gives me a stretch in the upper back. As I gently push inwards with my hands against my knees, my elbows drop down a little bit, and a really good stretch in the upper back between the shoulder blades and the spine. Taking your time, taking nice easy breaths. And another position, you can put the hands behind the back, fingers interlaced. And just hold it right here as the arms drop down. There is once again an opening up or stretching between the shoulder blades. But you can also be a bit more active. This now provides for a stretch in the chest. The palms can face each other. Hands are together. And you can also rotate the wrists and get a nice stretch in the fingers. I'm also feeling the forearms, the elbows, the bicep. Okay, and the final stretch I'll show you, which is not going to be available for everyone because it requires a lot of flexibility in different parts of the body. And it includes a twist. So here what I do, I bring my arm as far as I can. Gotta make sure that the elbow gets on the outside of the opposite leg. Then I'll rotate my shoulder, elbow, and wrist. and I can grab my foot. So I have my right hand grabbing the outside of my left foot. Then I would use support with the yoga block. And this hand would now grab the outside of the opposite foot. Really nice stretch, and benefit of any kind of twist or rotation is you get to massage the internal organs, especially if you're bringing your breathing down deep into the abdomen and not keeping it up in the chest. And once I release, I'll stay there usually for about 5 or 6 long breaths. I hold my hand so it doesn't release too quickly, and then I will lift up and repeat the same thing on the other side. So the important part is the elbow has to come on the outside of the leg. Grabbing, I'm using this to help assist taking the outside of that foot, putting the yoga block for support, and it's a really good stretch. I'm feeling it all the way right here. This is the area that's been tight for a few days. I also get sometimes an elbow adjustment with the elbow pressing into the outside shin. And nice big deep breaths into the lower part of the belly. And then I'll gently lift up. And this can also be done with the single leg. A little bit easier with the single leg because there are less muscles holding back. When I only have one leg forward, one leg bent, then only one side of the body is giving any kind of resistance. So that is the forward bend. I do this about 3 or 4 times a week. This morning I did it. I'll almost always stretch shortly after waking up. I'll have my cup of coffee. I'll be sipping. It's a nice time to do stretching because there's minimal noise. I hear the roosters, but very few other distractions. Great way to start the day. Also, to repeat, it's nice if your body is warm. Many times I'll also have a candle. Many people like to put some soft, gentle music. The last part of this forward bend video will be a balancing out of that forward bend. Bending forward, great stretching for the back of the body, but the front of the body gets closed. So it's nice to do an opposite stretch that will now open that front part of your body. So lying on your front, I'm resting the upper part of my body on my elbows and forearms. Elbows are underneath the shoulders, and I'm just holding this position for an extended time, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. And this is also a good position for you to do every day for even up to 15 or 20 minutes, especially if you have a lifestyle that makes your body rounded forward. Maybe you're sitting on a chair, at a desk, or at a table, or maybe you spend a lot of time sitting while traveling. Really nice to open things up and backwards. You want to go a little bit deeper, I can lift up, straightening my arms, keeping my head pointing up. And you'd want to hold that for however long you think is appropriate. And then if you want to finish with the child's pose, always really nice to do. Forehead's on the ground, knees are slightly separated. And I can rest on my forehead, or I can rest on one side of my head and equally balancing out with the other side of my head. And my arms can be above, or they can be alongside my legs. So the video number 9, forward bend, finally through, having problems with the camera, but I think everything turned out good enough. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.